like there's somewhat of an anemic attempt to come to Mitch McConnell's defense for his comments the other day on the floor of the Senate, which I criticized. Nobody said Mitch McConnell can fix anything. What people have said is, why doesn't he keep his mouth shut until January 6th, when other people are trying to look at the situation to decide what, if anything, can be done about it under our electoral college? What about the states? The states failed us. Many of the states did fail us. But where are these people when the states failed us? Have any of them contributed any time to assisting the litigation? Have any of them contributed any time to going over the briefs like I have and my family has? Have any of them spent any time dealing with the problem in the states? No, they haven't. See, the Democrats, and this is the difference, they fight at every level. Whether it's Schumer, whether it's in the states, whether it's in the cities, whether it's their state attorneys general, whether it's their judges, we get passes all the time. Mitch McConnell's a very nasty guy. I talked to a number of senators up there. They tell me how he conducts himself. And I'll give you a perfect example. I shouldn't even say this, should I, Rich? There's a candidate running in Georgia. We get along great with the candidate. Working at a date on Friday for that candidate to come on because Friday's my last show until January 4th, and Georgia's a crucially important election. Suddenly, the candidate is too busy. 2 days after I criticized Mitch McConnell. Now, Mitch McConnell would say, I had nothing to do with that. It's not Mitch McConnell. He's got operatives. This is how he conducts himself. This is how he stays the leader of the Republican Party. No, Mitch McConnell doesn't get a pass. Nobody gets a pass. This is a fight for the Republic. Nobody's saying Mitch McConnell had anything to do with anything. That's part of the problem. I'll be right back. You know, this talk about, in the states, they let this sort of thing take place. It's not McConnell's fault. Let me tell you what was taking place in some of these states. The legislature in Pennsylvania was fighting like hell against the Secretary of State and the governor and against their rogue state Supreme Court, all of which acted against the legislature. And the Republican Party of the state and others went all the way to the United States Supreme Court to point out the violations of the Constitution, and the Supreme Court would do nothing. Nothing. Many of the Republican legislature in Georgia wanted an emergency legislative session to take back the authority that the Republican Secretary of State illegally handed over effectively to Tracy Abrams. But the governor can only call in the legislature under emergency authority. He wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it. In Michigan, the state legislature, Republican, fought tooth and nail with the Democrat state elected officials, the constitutional officials there. They have a rogue governor, among others, and their Secretary of State. They fought. They went to court. Court wouldn't hear it. State after state after state. And we had brave, patriotic, volunteer lawyers, for the most part, fighting like hell in these states. You don't know any of their names. Very few of them, including my wife. So it's a little precious to get lectured about. Don't fall for the Mitch McConnell trick, because you dare to criticize Mitch McConnell, who goes to the floor after the electors vote, quote unquote, and gives a speech welcoming the incoming president and welcoming the incoming vice president. Well, these cases, in some cases, are still pending. He couldn't wait to give his speech? No, he couldn't wait, because the press was pressuring him to speak. Governor DeSantis in Florida, he's waiting. Others are waiting. They're saying, let the system play out. On January 6th, we'll know. Of course, it's an incredibly uphill fight. But don't criticize Mitch McConnell. I have heard this for 20 years. Poor Mitch McConnell. And he leaks to Politico, and he leaks to these other entities, and he has his surrogates who do their hatchet jobs on candidates they don't like. He's reached into states to knock off conservatives, to promote rhinos, to empower himself. Nobody ever talks about this or writes about it. And if you do, don't fall for the bait. Nobody's blaming Mitch McConnell for what took place in the states. Did somebody do that, Mr. Perdue? Who did that? Anybody? Just saying, shut the hell up until the propitious time to speak. Meanwhile, we all sit here and we watch. Chuck Schumer still hasn't accepted the Trump presidency. Nancy Pelosi still hasn't accepted the Trump presidency. Did Chuck Schumer go to the floor of the Senate when the electors were selected and give a friendly, supportive speech to Donald Trump and Mike Pence? No, that's what you're sick of, and I don't blame you. They were plotting Trump's demise. They were plotting how to destroy him. And the battleground was in the House. Oh, I understand the vote in the Senate. Mitch kept the Republicans together. Mitch kept the Republicans together? I don't think Mitch had to keep the Republicans together. There were a handful that we didn't know about, and they did what they wanted to do, whether it was Murkowski or Collins or Romney. Those were the three. Everybody knew it. If Collins had voted against Trump, she would have been thrown out despite all the propaganda. Same with Murkowski. And if Romney runs again in Utah, we'll see what happens to him in convention and beyond. That's really beside the point. All the information coming out about what took place against Donald Trump didn't come out because of Mitch McConnell. It came out mostly because of Devin Nunes in the House. Or Ron Johnson, who's had handcuffs put on him, quite frankly. You didn't hear McConnell leading the battle on the Russia collusion crap. The way Schumer leads his battles. It's time for some fresh blood and new leadership. It's time for people who can communicate with younger people and other people in this country. The reason McConnell's not out front most of the time is because he's a backroom guy. That's what he is. That's what he does. I don't hate him. It has nothing to do with that. It's not a matter of hanging our hat on him or whatever that phrase was. We look at the other side and we say, look at that. They got a 78-year-old Biden. They've got a 80-year-old, what's her name? Pelosi. Wouldn't it be nice if we had a young, articulate, substantive, charismatic Senate leader? Rather than destroying the farm team, rather than keeping the farm team down, it reminds me of Fauci, who's been around 50 years. And that's just the way it is. Because this party is going to revert back to its old ways. It's going to revert back to its old ways. Because the same people are there. You got McConnell, you got Blunt, you got Thune, you got Cornyn. That's it. And so there's no room. There's no room for the sorts of people I'm talking about. McConnell helped crush the Tea Party with Boehner. I have a very long memory. A very long memory. Has McConnell done some good things? Of course he has. Guy's been there 412 years. Of course he's done some good things. And he should have done some good things. By the way, is his advice to President Trump that Brett Kavanaugh would have an easier time getting through than Amy Coney Barrett? And the president listened to that, and he went with Kavanaugh first and Barrett second. Well, that happened to be absolutely wrong. Absolutely wrong. So I'm not going to spend tonight dealing with this, but you want to defend McConnell, go for it. But it really is time for some new blood. It really is. You know, you watch Kevin McCarthy on TV now. He's really got his act together. He comes on this show. He reaches out to conservatives. He speaks. He's articulate. He's available. It's not the same with McConnell. It's just not. It's the way it is.